the Bible hints at a woman before Eve, a woman erased, demonized, and turned into a monster. Her name was Lilith. And her story changes everything.
Yeah, it really is. It's the oldest kind of ghost story, a story about an absence, you know?
Right.
When you look closely at the foundational texts of Western civilization, you realize there is this massive, deliberate void, a shadow where a person used to be.
I love that framing.
Yeah.
And I want to welcome you to a very different kind of deep dive today, because we're journeying back to the primordial chaos today.
We really are.
We're going to find a figure who was carefully and deliberately excised from the standard narrative. Let's unpack this, because the sources we're using today, they're not your standard historical footnotes.
No, not at all. We have to approach these materials with a real sense of caution, almost reverence, because these aren't just articles, they're ancient relics.
Right, like the Sumerian king list.
Exactly. The Sumerian king list from roughly 2400 BC. And then we're looking at fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the apocryphal Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, even, ancient Mesopotamian night spirit lore. We're pairing that with 19th century Gothic literature and modern sociological analyses.
It's a massive stack of evidence for someone who supposedly doesn't exist in the main story.
Yeah. We are essentially attempting to read a palimpsest, an ancient manuscript where the original words have been scraped away, just so someone else could write over them.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But if you hold that parchment up to the light, you can still see the indentations of the original ink. The scribes tried to scrape Lilith out of existence, but she left an indelible mark.
So to see that original ink, we have to start at the bedrock, the story we all thought we knew, Genesis.
Right. Genesis chapter 2.
Specifically, Genesis 2.22. This is the one we're universally handed. The clean, unquestionable narrative. God casts a deep sleep over Adam, opens his side, takes a rib, and fashions Eve.
And, that is a story of clear subordination.
Totally.
Yeah.
She is created from a piece of the man, designed, quite literally, to be his helper.
It's a very orderly narrative. It establishes a divine hierarchy, right? The man is the original template and the woman is a derivative extension.
Which sociologically is a great way to cement a patriarchal worldview right at the dawn of humanity.
Absolutely. But here is the problem that ancient scholars actually faced. Genesis 2 is not the first creation story in the Bible.
Right. You just flip back one page to Genesis 1, and it's a totally different story.
It is. Genesis 1.27 says, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them."
Yeah, male and female, simultaneous.
Simultaneous dual creation. There's no rib. There's no deep sleep. They are brought into existence at the exact same moment from the exact same earth.
Wait, if she was made of the same earth, why is the rib story the only one that survived in the mainstream? How do you just, lose the first woman?
Well, you have to look at how ancient rabbinical scholars viewed these texts. For them, the text was infallible. So they had to reconcile this glaring contradiction. How do you have a woman created at the same time as Adam in chapter 1, but then a woman created from his rib in chapter 2?
Oh, so they couldn't just say, it's two different authors.
No. Their solution was... it was logical, but also deeply terrifying to the established order. They deduced there must have been two women.
Wow. Okay.
The woman in Genesis 1 was the first wife, formed from the exact same clay as Adam. And the woman in Genesis 2 was the second wife, created later to replace the first.
Meaning that first woman made of the same earth was entirely unconditionally equal to Adam. She wasn't an afterthought.
Yes. And that absolute equality was a massive theological threat. So we see her story crystallize in extra-biblical lore, like the alphabet of Ben Sira, around the 8th to 10th centuries. The story goes that because she was made of the same earth, she demanded equal treatment. Right. When it came time to be intimate, she refused to lie beneath Adam. She literally said, "We are equal, for we are both from the earth."
She just looked at the situation and said, why should I be subservient?
Yeah.
We were dug out of the exact same mud.
Precisely. And Adam tried to assert dominance, but Lilith, she wouldn't yield. And when she realized she wasn't going to get equality, she did something unthinkable.
What did she do?
She uttered the ineffable secret name of God, which in ancient lore gave her unimaginable power. And she just rose into the air and flew away from the Garden of Eden.
She abandoned paradise.
She did. There is a woman missing from the Bible. A woman who walked away from paradise.
Let's let that sit for a second. The gravity of that. But I mean, if she was that powerful, how did they just erase her?
Yeah.
Wouldn't the scribes want to destroy every single trace of her?
You don't lose a figure that foundational by accident. You erase her by design. But total erasure, it's nearly impossible.
Right.
It's like removing a load-bearing pillar. The floor sags, the walls crack, people know something was there. The Orthodox traditions found her so dangerous that they didn't just burn the texts, they fragmented her narrative.
They scattered her.
Exactly. Across forbidden texts. They left only Eve, the compliant woman, in the center of the room.
Which is wild when you realize how much massive, detailed lore exists just outside the margins of the Bible. Like the stuff we never hear about.
The apocryphal texts are incredibly rich.
Yeah, like the conflict of Adam and Eve with Satan. It's this text from, I think, the 5th or 6th century.
Roughly.
And it describes them living in the cave of treasures after they're kicked out of Eden. They are terrified of the dark because they've never seen nightfall. And Eve has kids, not just Cain and Abel, but twins.
Right. Cain and his twin sister, Lulua.
Yes. Lulua, meaning beautiful, and Cain, meaning hater. It's this huge family drama. And the fact that we have all that intricate lore about Eve, but Lilith is just gone. She is the ultimate victim of this marginalization.
Because if she is human, her demand for equality is a rational argument. You can't allow a rational argument against the divine hierarchy to survive. You have to strip away her humanity.
It's like looking at an ancient redacted document where all the most important parts are blacked out. But if you hold it up to the light of these surrounding cultures, the Sumerians, the Akkadians, you can still read the original words.
That's the perfect way to phrase it, because her story survives only in the books that were never meant to be read.
Right. So let's talk about those books. Let's look at those surrounding cultures. Because she didn't actually start with Jewish folklore, did she?
No, we have to go much further back. To ancient Mesopotamia. Her earliest known appearance is in the Sumerian king list, around 2400 BC.
So 4,500 years ago.
Exactly. She appears as Lilith, a she-demon, a spirit of the wind and the night. And even then, they're warping her. She's associated with storms and disease.
But things get so much darker when we get to the Second Temple period, right? The Dead Sea fragments, the Enoch traditions.
This is where the mythological backdrop just explodes. We are talking about the era of the Watchers.
The fallen angels.
Yes. The Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees. These were massively popular texts in antiquity, but they were deliberately excluded from the canonical scripture.
Why? I mean, what was so dangerous about them?
They describe a terrifying ancient world, a time of cosmic war, genetic manipulation, angelic rebellion. The boundary between divine, human, and animal was completely porous.
Let's get into the specifics because the lore here is just incredible. 200 angels, the Watchers, descend to Mount Hermon.
Led by Samjaza and Azazel.
Right. And they don't just fall. They mate with human women. But they also teach humanity these forbidden arts.
Yes, this is crucial. Azazel teaches men metallurgy, how to forge swords, shields, breastplates. He introduces mechanized slaughter.
And they teach women cosmetics, making jewelry, painting their eyes with antimony.
And root cutting, magic. Think about what these things have in common. They are the arts of alteration, taking what is natural and warping it into something artificial and powerful. They unleashed knowledge that humanity was not meant to have.
It's pure primordial chaos.
Yeah.
And the result of these angelic human unions, the Nephilim,
Giant, bloodthirsty offspring.
absolute chimerical monsters. And this is the era that Lilith's mythology overlaps with. Because she rejected her place, she gets lumped into this exact same era of monstrous creation.
Right. To the ancient mind, to step outside of the divine hierarchy wasn't just breaking a rule, it was an ontological rebellion. If you refused your assigned place, you literally lost your human form.
So she starts as an equal human made of earth.
Yeah.
And the myth mutates her into an owl-winged demon who steals babies. Is this early society's way of saying, if you step out of line, you lose your humanity?
Absolutely. The rabbinical texts start describing her as part human, part owl. She grows wings and claws. Because they believed that chimeras, these monsters, were physical projections of mental creations.
Wait, really? The monsters were manifestations of their own twisted souls.
Yes. The outward manifestation of a soul distorted by rebellion. If you won't be a submissive wife or mother, the myth physically morphs you into a predator that destroys wives and mothers.
Wow.
You see this with other ancient chimeras too, like the Greek Lamia.
Oh, the queen who turned into a snake.
Exactly. Lamia was a queen whose children were destroyed by the goddess Hera out of jealousy. Driven mad by grief, Lamia retreats to a cave and transforms. Upper body of a woman, lower body of a serpent. And she wanders the night, sucking the life from the babies of mortal women.
It's the exact same archetype. You take a woman who experiences this profound injustice, and instead of validating her pain, the myth twists her into a child killer.
And Lilith evolves the same way. By the Middle Ages, she becomes the succubus, a night demon who breathes through nocturnal unions with men.
Lilith is not merely human. She is a chimera of autonomy, half flesh, half night.
What's fascinating here is when we pivot to the modern sociological analyses in our sources, when you strip away the claws and the demon wings, you are looking at a really profound psychological projection.
Because she is essentially the shadow of Eve.
Precisely. Eve represents the compliant helpmate. Her lust, her desires, they are entirely subordinated to Adam's.
She is the acceptable domestic ideal.
Right. And Lilith is the archetype of refusal. Cultures demonize what they fear. And what these texts reveal is a primitive terror of untamed female sexuality and autonomy. The sources describe this as a nightmare vision of the insatiable female.
It's brilliant but tragic.
Yeah.
By turning her into a literal monster with claws, the storytellers didn't have to address the validity of her wanting to be treated as an equal. They just made her the boogeyman.
You don't negotiate with a monster.
Exactly. You just lock your doors and pray.
And the sociological texts explain this as a necessary function for early patriarchal society. They demanded the muting of female bodily autonomy. They call it the compartmentalization of sensibility.
Meaning they had to separate the good mother from the wild woman.
Yes. You put all the acceptable submissive traits into a box named Eve. And all the defiance, the sexual independence, the demand for equality, you put that in a box named Lilith, and you throw it into the dark. Because they feared that if those traits were unleashed, it would disrupt the heterosexual peace.
And you can see that fear infecting the theology. I mean, look at how the story of the Watchers changes over time.
Oh, the shifting of blame. It is a perfect example of misogyny hardening into theology.
Break that down for us, because that was wild to read.
So in the early book of Enoch, the fallen angels descend because of their own lust. It's their fault. They choose to fall.
Right.
But as centuries pass and we get to the book of Jubilees and later writings, the blame completely shifts.
It shifts to the women.
Yes, the narrative becomes, the angels came down with good intentions, but the corrupting carnality of human women seduced them.
Just by existing.
Just by being beautiful, they became the source of cosmic ruin.
So Lilith is the embodiment of the part of humanity that rejects that domination, the part that refuses to take the blame.
Lilith is the part of the human psyche that will not kneel.
And I think that's why she echoes so loudly into the modern era. Every era resurrects Lilith, and every culture tries to bury her.
She survives millennia of redaction, from ancient wind demon to rabbinical night terror, and eventually she becomes a modern symbol of independence, danger, and the forbidden feminine.
We see that so clearly in the 19th century. George MacDonald's 1895 Gothic fantasy novel, literally titled Lilith.
Right. A Victorian reinterpretation.
Which is wild. Why Victorian England?
Well, the Victorians were obsessed with purity and policing female sexuality. It was this pressure cooker of suppressed eroticism.
Which birthed Dracula, Carmilla.
Exactly. And MacDonald resurrects her in that context. In his novel, she is still Adam's first wife, and she has these vampiric qualities. She sucks the blood of the living.
But the ending he gives her is so telling of that era.
It really is. MacDonald believes in universal redemption, so he has God redeems Lilith at the end. But she is only saved with the assistance of Adam and Eve.
She has to be subjugated back into the traditional family unit to be saved.
Right. She can't just be free in the wilderness. She must be domesticated. It shows how every generation reinterprets her based on their own cultural anxieties.
Why do you think we can't let her go? I mean, even after thousands of years of the Genesis narrative dominating the globe, we are still digging through the margins looking for her.
Because the stories we leave out of our history shape our reality just as much as the stories we keep in. We can't let her go because she forces us to ask, what parts of our own autonomy have we demonized or buried just to fit into the roles assigned to us?
Every time a woman refuses a role, Lilith's shadow rises again.
Yes.
And it makes you wonder. The ancient sources claim that the chimeras and monstrosities of the early world were born when souls inhabited bodies which were projections of their own mental creations. If Lilith was turned into a monster because of the collective psychological terror of early patriarchal society, what modern monsters are we actively conjuring into existence right now simply because we are too afraid to face our own shadows?
Lilith is not a monster. She's a memory of the first woman who walked away, and her story still changes everything.